Well, I don't know if you're like me in this way, but when it comes to technology, there's so many things that come out. There's so many things. I enjoy it, but when I read an operational manual or now like insert or leaflet, I don't read it very much of it. I feel like I should know, which I don't, but I feel like I do. And so whether it's a phone or it's some kind of thing, I start working with it and go, oh, that's good. I know how it works. And then I see somebody else, they do like 10 times the things that I know how to do. And so it's just like getting somebody to help you how it works. You know, if you just push this button and click that box, it does like twice as much. Oh, okay. So since I don't read that much, I like to stick around like 25-year-olds because I don't think they read either, but they know somehow, and I don't. But they help me. And so, my wife and I both have this ignition in our car. That's like, it's not a key that you put in, but it's you just have to have your key on you somewhere, and then you can open the door, you can turn on the ignition with just your finger. But when I watch somebody else who's going to drive try to turn on the ignition, it's kind of funny because they're trying to get, like, how does this work now? And so you kind of have the idea, but it's just simply you put your foot on the brake and you push in the button and it starts. But both of our cars are hybrids, so you can hardly hear it. So they could be doing it right and not think they are because they can't hear. And so it's just a matter of like show you a little how to do it. And so when I'm thinking about these kind of things, I think that that's true with us in life, and I think it's true sometimes spiritually, that we get a little of it right and start moving ahead, but then things aren't working right, or we're getting off track, or it's not really producing what we thought it would. And so learning some more about what it is that we're doing, learning more about our faith is important. And so what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be talking for a few weeks on passion. The writing is on the wall. We're going to be talking about passion. And passion is one of those things that we hear a lot about. We hear people saying, find your passion, know your passion, follow your passion. And passion is a powerful thing. But it can lead you down the wrong direction, just like it could lead you into a place of strength and a successful direction. And, passion in one person is compelling to another, isn't it? When you see somebody who's passionate about something, it's inspiring to you. Sometimes we get passionate about what they're passionate about because it's so effective. And or sometimes we see someone else get passionate about something and we realize how unpassionate, we are about English, about how we lack passion in a particular area. I love kids, I just like watching kids and interacting with them, but sometimes kids can just be excited about the simplest thing. And, they're not thinking about race problems in the world. They're not thinking about the election. They're not thinking about this problem or that problem. They're just like in the moment. And they're just like, they get excited. And you're just like, man, I want that. I want to forget some of the stuff that's going on and just like enjoy this moment. And sometimes it's a person, somebody they love, and they're just run and jump to them. And it's that enthusiasm that is so compelling. And Jesus even said something about how the little children will lead us. And I know I'm probably expanding on it more than he intended, but I think that children's enthusiasm is that kind of passion. And when we look at passion and we search our own life, there's a good chance that maybe there's something important to you that you don't feel as passionate about as you once did. And sometimes we're in love. We were passionate at first, and then you go through things and go through circumstances, and you kind of lost the fire. And what I notice is sometimes just seeing somebody else passionate sometimes awakens us up like, oh, I should be, I'm grateful too. I have a great person, and you put that passion. But sometimes there are issues in between, like what is killing your passion about your work or your relationship or your ministry or your art or whatever it is that you're doing. What's killing that passion? And so we want to talk about this because it's so important. And if you're new to Oasis or you're a guest, you're here, and we're passionate about what we believe. And and you might be thinking there's a thin line between passion and kind of crazy, but it's really because we believe that God is present. We really believe that he loves us. We really believe that he's washed our sins away, And so we're just excited about it. And so that might be what you're seeing. But some of you might be really sincere people of faith, but sometimes we go through stuff in life and the passion starts to wane a bit. And my goal here over the next few weeks is to awaken some passion in you about the things of God, about faith in your life, teach some things about passion that we can learn together, and just see that strength in your life. And I think we tend to reach out and include others in the things that we're passionate about. And think about that. Ask that question. What are you passionate about? And what is it that you maybe think you should be passionate about, but you've lost some of it? I heard somebody ask this question: what makes your heart sing? I like that. I like how it sounds, because there should be some of that in your heart. And I want to speak to the passion inside you. I hope that over the next few weeks that there will be a passion stirred up in you that will bring out joy in your life, and love for God and love for people, and a sense of confidence about you're going in a good direction that's going to bring strength and be a blessing to others. One of the things I want to talk about is passion for the house, and talking about passion for the church, for God's house. And Jesus showed this passion. See, I'm passionate about Jesus, and I'm passionate about ministry and people. And so when I look and see what Jesus was passionate about, then I feel like if I'm a sincere follower, I want to be passionate about what he's passionate about. And so the Bible tells us about this story when he's going to the temple, which would have been their, local church. And so in Matthew chapter 21, it tells us that Jesus entered the temple, which is like the outer part, and began to drive out all the people buying and selling animals for sacrifice. So just a real quick side note, people were being taken advantage of. It wasn't that somebody was selling something. It was, you need a sacrifice to get what you need from God as you come in. And so I'm going to sell you a lame sacrifice, and I'm going to raise the money. So it's just manipulation and deceit. And so they were doing this. And so Jesus knocked over the tables of the money changers and the chairs of those selling doves. And he said to them, the scriptures declare my temple will be called a house of prayer, but you've turned it into a den of thieves. And in the version in the Gospel of John, they said at the end, it says in chapter 2, then his disciples remembered this prophecy from the scriptures. Passion for God's house will consume me. I mean, Jesus was passionate about people connecting with God. And he was passionate about tearing down boundaries and barriers and calling out tradition that we lost the point. And so he got so passionate, he was like throwing tables around and separating business people from their cash. So when I was a kid, my first memory of pictures of Jesus was like in a meadow with a lamb on his arm and like this smile, like he's like gazing into somewhere that we don't know. And it was the Prince of Peace. but he was so passionate. This is not the picture he was showing. And, sometimes in order to get peace, you got to break through some things. But he was so passionate for God's house that he acted in this intensity. And, I just think that as we start to follow God, as we push in and pursue our faith, that there's a passion that's important in it. And there's this version of the Bible that's a newer version called the Passion Translation. So I've been reading through some of the scripture, and I like what I saw in Philippians. It's the Apostle Paul writing, and he says this in chapter 3. I run straight for the divine invitation of reaching the heavenly goal and gaining the victory prize through the anointing of Jesus. So he's focused on this relationship with Jesus and doing what God's called him to do, doing it well. And then he says, so let all who are fully mature have this same passion. And if anyone is not yet gripped by these desires, God will reveal it to them. And so he's saying, man, this is important. If you're going to become who God created you to be, if you're going to make a difference in the world and do what he's put in you to do, passion is going to have to be involved in it. And so I like that. And it helps me understand that there was when Paul wrote to Timothy, his young protege, in 1 Timothy, he told him, fan the flames that are in you. And sometimes we have to do that, fan the flames. And sometimes we think, well, if I have to fan the flame, it may not be real. But we're gonna talk about a little bit about the makeup of passion. But I just want you to know I'm passionate about reaching people with the message of God's love. I'm passionate about our church. I'm passionate about connecting people who are far from God with Jesus. And I just hope that you get that you have that in your heart. And that doesn't mean that every single day of my life I've been excited about it, because sometimes you go through difficulties and frustrations. And I've been pastoring 32 years, and so it may not sound like a lot in a business context or some other context, but when I talk to other young pastors that are starting or other leaders, they say, how do you stay passionate after all those years? And, because I still have that same feeling of when somebody is making a decision of faith or somebody's relationship is healed, I just am moved in my heart. I'm so excited about it. And sometimes it's funny because I love to see people make a decision like, I want to start out on this journey of faith. And so when people, sometimes Christians, when they get bored with a church or people or something, or maybe there's a problem, they'll say, well, I like that your church is good at reaching new people, but I'm looking for something deeper. And so I'm just thinking, well, Jesus said, I have come to seek and save the lost. That sounds pretty deep to me, if we're following him. And I'm just passionate about it. So I have passion for compassion. I'm passionate about how we are funding water well projects in developing nations and countries. And I'm passionate about the widows and orphans that we've helped support in Uganda and different countries. This moves us because it comes from the heart of God, I believe. And so we need to have that kind of passion in our life. Now, let's talk about some maybe mistaken beliefs about passion. Are you guys still here? Okay. The first idea is that sometimes we think passion precedes commitment. Like we have to find passion first before we get fully engaged. But I think about that because then when we hear these things like, find your passion, and then we think, well, I haven't found what I'm passionate about. Well, you could be in that condition for a couple of decades. So then what are you going to do? So when you turn 39 or 40 or whatever, 50 or, whatever you consider really old. I remember back then when I turned 39 a couple of decades ago. But I'll just, by the way, 40s was a great decade. But there was a point in my life where I realized I was waiting. These days we say, find your passion. When I was younger, we were trying to find ourselves. And so, we'd look inside. We were trying to find ourselves. And I didn't have much to find, so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to hang out because I'm searching. We used to call it navel gazing, which are so self-focused. And I found out you could discover yourself by going out and doing something. And I found out, getting busy and active and doing something that matters, you discover about who you are. It's better than sitting there searching on the inside and being nobody. It'd be better to go out and be a little wrong than do nothing. And so we think sometimes, like, if I find, I'm not really involved in anything yet because I'm just trying to find my passion. And so we might think that we find this passion, then we start pursuing it, everything starts coming together. But look at this. This little graphic I have here that's like a mistaken view of passion. It's like passion leads to engagement, and then engagement leads to commitment, and then you're achieving something, and that leads to fulfillment or joy or strength or success or whatever it is that we're moving toward. But this is where I think we start out and we're a little off. Like we don't really fully understand how it works, because then when we hear things from people that say, follow your passion, follow your heart. What if you haven't found one? Then we hear things like, to be truly successful in your life, you must find your passion. So there's some truth in this, but you can't start with passion. When you find your true passion, every day is exciting. I don't believe that either. Because this talks about how passion leads you, but I'm suggesting that there's a little bit different principle here. And a new view of passion could be this, that you find something worthy and you get engaged with it. You get committed to it, and passion emerges. And you've got to take care of that passion. And then it leads to achievement and momentum and fulfillment and success and strength and those kinds of things. And so this is just something for you to think about and entertain, because if you're somebody who says, I want more out of life than I have right now, I want to have this something to live for, to define me, then it's important to pick something that Jesus teaches us a lot of things that we could do. Sometimes we don't do things spiritually because we're just not passionate about it. Well, I'm just waiting for God to show me. Well, maybe he will show you as you do things like, yep, this is helpful. This is in your zone. This is your gifting. And those things evolve. That's how it's happened for me. Thinking about this idea of being 1% off of where you're going. Like we were talking about learning technology or learning something and being a little off. If I was going to take a trip to London, and so the trip is, I'm going from LA to San Francisco, switching airlines, going in San Francisco to New York to London. If I am 1% off, the pilot is 1% off. So going to San Francisco, we might be a little off, and it's correctable as you approach. But then the longer the trip is, when you go to New York, we could be headed for another state. And then going to London, we could be going toward another country. 1% by the end will lead you way off track. And so it's important that we're setting a track that we're getting passionate about. And that's what I'm proposing to you, because it's identifying what matters and moving forward in it. We have an artist in our church, Jerry Rodriguez. I really like the work he does, and it's very creative, very cool. And he did a whole series of things that were kind of based on an idea of graffiti, but he did this one, and it's like an Instagram picture of Jesus. And so you see up there, a lot of people have some comments about Jesus. And then a lot of people like Jesus. They like them. but he's got no followers. And I love that picture because it's easy to come say, oh, Jesus is cool, or I like learning more about God. But where it really makes a difference is when we're following him and we're getting that part right. Because we can say a lot of things and we can say, oh, I like Jesus. I like that part that Jesus is so peaceful and calm and he would never upset anybody. But then you find out, oh, he gets passionate and things get moved around, So we want to follow him. And that's getting ourselves right on target. I hope that when you put your intention in following him, you'll discover a new momentum in your life through the pursuit of God's best. Jesus told us in Matthew 6, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. What that means is put first pursuing a relationship with God and learning from him. And what is it that you want me to do? Having that often and regular connection with him. So he says, seek first that. And then I'll add the other things. And, many times, just like, we're all the same, where it's easier to shift on trying to get those other things done. Those becomes the things that we're passionate about. He said, if you'll keep your passion in living a life that honors me, I will provide those other things as well. Does that make sense? Paul, here's another one from the Passion Translation. In Philippians 3, Paul says, I admit that I haven't yet acquired the absolute fullness that I'm pursuing, but I run with passion into his abundance so that I may reach the destiny that Jesus Christ has called me to fulfill and wants me to discover. I love that. Does anybody in here love this? Can you tell I'm passionate? It feels like I am on the inside. I can't tell if it's coming through or not. Holly always, you can always tell how she's feeling. And she always is like, you need to be happy. I'm like, I am. She says, well, let your face, so I just, inside, I'm feeling like really passionate, but I might be coming out like, hey guys. So I don't know. I'm trying my best. So here's another mistaken idea. So one is that everything starts with passion. See, that's why we get into trouble, and it leads us to this next thing. There's this idea that where there's passion, there is no pain. Like what you're really passionate about will lead you down this path where everything works out great. But see, that's what messes up marriage. Because sometimes you're passionate and you love each other and you get married, and then you hit a season where there's problems and you think, well, maybe I married the wrong person. Everybody who has a great marriage that lasted for decades thought at some time, I must have married the wrong person. They probably thought it several times, because sometimes it's the commitment and the engagement that you're passionate about. And when you see your passion waning or dissolving because of your commitment, you re-engage it. You look at other people and see what they're doing. You learn, you come to a Love Works night and you hear something that will inspire you. You hang around other people and you find out, oh, this is how you awaken that passion. That's why you come to church. Those of you who have a faith and love God, and maybe you say, man, I need something more than my faith, and you get around other people who have that same kind of passion for God, then it rubs off on you. It fires up your passion. Is this making sense? And so it's not about there's no pain. Sometimes true passion is birthed out of pain that you go through. So many times I've seen people find sort of a purpose, and it's come from helping others through either avoid or get free from what they've been through. I know what it's like to have a faith in God but feel like you don't fit in the church. I know what it's like to be a follower of Jesus but then go and sit in church, or you're bored, or you don't feel like the message is pertinent to your life. So I'm passionate about leading a congregation of people that really genuinely love God and want to have this real relationship with him. I know what it's like to go through a season in marriage where you think, I don't think this is going to work. If this is as good as it's going to get, it stinks. Yeah, and I think Holly felt that too. I know she did, because she says what she's thinking. And so, we're just like, we're hitting the wall and going, man, I'm a pastor. I'm supposed to be helping other people. And I don't know if this is going to work. And we had to learn how to love each other and how to communicate better and just where we were killing the relationship. And it changed everything. And it leads us to the importance of this part of the message is that community. That's the core of my message. All that you heard so far was an introduction, and I got 5 minutes left. So, but it's important to understand the whole passion. But now we're talking about passion for God's house, and we're talking about community. Everything that God wired us up for that we want in life, whether it's love or relationship or significance or achievement or safety, security, all of these kind of things, it's locked up in community. It's connected or found in relationships. And what I mean by that is that whether you start out in family and then you have friends and maybe you're on a team or in a club and you find elements of community through life. And you find friendships and relationships and marriage. And many times those communities or those relationships break down. But, God wired us up to whatever he's called you to do, whatever this big life mission for you is, it'll be linked to working with other people. And if you've been one of those that's just been taken advantage of or disappointed or just like, I don't know if I want to do that. Sometimes people are like, hey, I raised myself. My dad wasn't here. My mom was the only mom and had to work. And I, was my own person and helped. And so then you start talking about that. And that's great as a survival method. But then sometimes that's how we revert in life. It's like we feel safer alone. Or doing it ourselves, or finding a way to navigate through a crowd, but not having any real connection. And God wired it up so we need each other. We need each other to help us be stronger. Community is like a group inside a bigger group. So your family is a group in Los Angeles, for instance. And then, our church. You're part of a community here in LA or in a city with a lot of churches. And then there's smaller groups. So we have 4 services. There's probably 3,000 people or so who would come here on a regular basis throughout the month. But you could be here for months or years and not know a lot of people. And so we have these connect groups that we do that'll be starting up in a couple of weeks, and we have volunteer groups, and it's just outreach groups. It's just a thing to connect with people on a smaller level so you can be part of a community in a community. Because it does affect those one-on-one relationships. And it leads us to this place of how do you build friendships? How do you build trustworthy relationships? How do you have passion for individual people and relationships when you've also experienced a lot of pain? And I get that where you're not sure, should I trust this person or should I not trust this person? Man, I feel like so many times I'll trust the one I shouldn't have and don't trust the one I should have. It's always easier to tell the next week after something goes down, but how do you communicate? How do you trust? How do you work through? How do you be real? And a key part of church is the community dynamic. That's why we're doing this one night, this Love Works thing, because marriage is a struggle. And I think every one of us has a notion that that dating relationship that's more than that dating relationship, or that marriage is significant. And we see all around in our city of millions of people, a lot of isolated, lonely people, and a lot of struggling relationships. And so that's why it's important for us. We say, let's help. Let's talk about it. Let's give you some principles and see what we can do to help build that relationship, that marriage in your life. And a great marriage takes work, and it's worth the investment. I was just thinking about, mostly when we do things, it's a free admission. So this is $15, and it would go, I don't go to church, it's free. Why would I spend $15? Have you ever got counseling? I mean, those are like $100 a session for a good person. That's where you start. And then I hear divorce is a lot more expensive. So $15 is nothing, But the thing is, what you're committed to, you'll get engaged with, and that's where you put passion. Because just because we're not passionate about doing something, that could be setting us up for a struggle. And so Holly and I, we've been married 32 years. And we've learned so many things by how we communicate with each other. I would try to change her, and she would try to change me. And, she would say probably I had a lot more things that needed changing, which is why she needed to change, because she talked like that. If you come at this conference, we don't pick on the men and give them a bad time just because I'm passionate about that. Now, but instead we started to remember, how did we get in love? How did we make this commitment? We saw each other differently. We had a passion about something different. All of a sudden, our passion became about fixing them. And we had to shift it. I'll tell you, if you can change your focus about how you see the person you love, how you see the one you're married to, it changes everything. And, there was a time where in our marriage, I just thought, okay, I guess this is as good as it's gonna get. And so you're committed, and so you just live it out. Just live out the next 40 slow, mediocre, boring years. What a vision for a marriage. Our intent would be to say, dream again, play, remember why you got together. And, look, this is what I like. In Proverbs, it paints a whole different picture of marriage. You ready for this one? Proverbs chapter 5, Solomon said, may your fountain, which is like the force of life in your soul, your passion, may your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving doe and a graceful deer, may her breast satisfy you always. Don't you love the Bible? May you ever be intoxicated, one version says enraptured by her love. That was the point. Those of you who got off on something else, that's your problem. But the point of this was be ever intoxicated or enraptured with your love. That's the picture God wants us to have. And I thought, I didn't have that picture. And so we did the work that it would take to forgive and to communicate better and to work through challenges so that we could have a relationship that we thrived. And so we want that for you, because community and relationship is so important. God is passionate about community, and he wants us to be led by the love of God in how we relate and treat to one another. We can see in our world today that the racial divide in our nation is in big trouble. The community at large. But in this room, I know many people in this church, I know many people, it's a different community than the community out there, is that people are loved and trusted, and it's not about skin color, it's about heart, it's about relationship, and this is the power of community. We just need to have more communities like ours and churches and other organizations that honor each other genuinely to have the biggest impact in our world and not the least. I'm out of time, and so I am passionate about not going 20 minutes over. But I want to say that one of the thoughts about the idea of passion is that passion is there to help you go through and navigate past painful points and difficulties. And if you think about Jesus entering into this season of where he was lied about, he was arrested, he was betrayed, he was rejected, and he was beaten and crucified. And what do we call that journey from the public? We call it the passion. And it would be easy for us to, at some point going through something similar in our life, to define it as, well, this must be right because I've lost my passion. You certainly don't see Jesus going, oh, I love this. It was painful, but he knew his purpose. He was here for you. He was here for me. He was here to please his Father. And that passion helped him go through the pain. And it says in Hebrews that for the joy that's set before him, he endured the pain of the cross. It was the passion for you. It was his passion for you and me. And I hope that you live your life out of that connection between you and God, that there's a passionate connection for the things that matter. Let's pray. God, I thank you for every person that's come today. And I know that people have been through so many different situations, and there's some people really struggling in different areas of their life, and I know that each one matters to you. But I pray for healing of our hearts and souls. I pray for encouragement and inspiration. I pray, God, that you would give the Holy Spirit to people in such a way that there would be a passion that's greater than the trials, the storms, and the difficulties. Be the lifter of our hearts, God. Be the lifter of our soul. So we have a different way of seeing this journey of faith.